Let's take a look at Donald Trump's performance on the campaign trail versus his 2024 performance as president. In today's video, I'm going to break it down for you guys. This article is by counterforpolitics.org. Trump's approval rating, my editorial edition of the heading, versus his 2024 performance. Donald Trump, starts his second month in office, meaning it is his 32nd day of his second term, so it's a good time to check in on the early impressions of his presidency. As of Wednesday afternoon, Trump's approval and disapproval ratings in national polls were very similar in averages provided by the two major polling aggregators, 538 and Real Clear Politics. Trump was at 48.7% approval, 46.2 disapproval rating, which is plus 2% points for his approval in 538, or before his not approval in 538, and 49.2% approval, 46.9 disapproval, plus 2.3 points in Real Clear Politics. The averages are computed in different ways and don't include all of the same polls, but they both tell the same basic story. The current averages show some decline for Trump, which is a good thing for some. I mean, really it is. Fortunately, my editorial edition. Since the first approval polls of his second term, the first 538 findings showed Trump's approval at 49.7 approval and 41.5 disapproval percentage points, which is 8.2 points. So his net approval is nearly 6 points weaker now than it was, my editorial edition. Meanwhile, Real Clear Politics does not show its initial average, but if one just looks at the approval poll in its base or database with field dates only in January, it shows an average of 48.6% approval ratings, percentage points, and 44.3% disapproval ratings points, which is 4.3 points. So, Real Clear Politics, net approval is also lower now too. notice that Trump's current job approval rating in both averages is fairly similar to the initial average. Trump's approval rating of around 49% on average is also very similar to the share of the vote that he received in November, which was 49.7%. My editorial edition. Meanwhile, his disapproval rating is 46% to 47%, is a little lower, a little bit, my editorial edition, than the 48.2% of the vote that Kamala Harris received in the fall, and Trump's disapproval rising over the past month contributes more to his smaller net approval edge than his approval falling did. My editorial edition. This is actually similar to what happened to Joe Biden in the first month of his presidency. If we just use the 538 average for Biden, he started off with a 53.1 percentage approval rating and a 30.2 disapproval rating in the average, or about plus 23 percentage points on net on January 23rd of 2021, so just a few days after he took office. A month later, Biden's approval rating was actually a little bit higher at 54.8% approval ratings, but his net approval rating, which was 18 plus points, was lower because his disapproval rating was at 36.9%, which was an increase more than his approval rating. This makes sense, as people who didn't vote for a president, particularly in this polarized era, might give a new president the benefit of the doubt by either actively approving of him or not, and disapproving of him instead. But this probably will not go on indefinitely. This is also probably happening with Trump now, as his disapproval rating slowly rises. Biden's approval rating would top out at 55% in mid-March and then slowly decline as disapproval ratings increased and his approval declined, with his approval surpassing his approval at the start of September of 2021, coinciding with the collapse of the Afghanistan government and the haphazard Americans' withdrawal from the country. There's little doubt Biden's approval ratings would have actually turned net negative absent that event. Though Biden's approval rating never turned net positive again, and he finished, with a poor 37% to 57% approval and disapproval rating spread. Unfortunately, my editorial edition. During his first term, Trump himself saw his approval rating turn net negative roughly 2 weeks into his presidency per 538, and it never turned net positive after that point. Still, Trump, knowing himself, is doing noticeably better than he was 8 years ago, unfortunately. A month into his first presidency, Trump was at 43.7 approval rating and 50.2% disapproval rating per 538. That said, Trump is also off to a weaker start than any other newly elected president in the post-war modern polling era, other than himself in his first term. Again, per 538 historical averages, and his numbers, while still positive, are slipping a bit in the aggregate, even as he and his net approval rating is still a bit better than his national popular vote margin from last year. My editorial edition. Getting the benefit of the doubt from some typically Democratic constituents may at least partially explain why this is happening. Adam Carlson, who is a former Democratic pollster and friend of the crystal ball, has been tracking Trump's approval rating in national polls and averaging demographic crosstabs where available. Table 1 incorporates some of his findings and compares Trump's net approval rating with certain groups with the 2024 national exit poll conducted for a variety of news outlets by Edison Research. My editorial edition. The exit poll is by no means perfect, and there are or will be other analysis of 2024 Democratic voting patterns. One of them is a different 2024 voter analysis sponsored by the Associated Press and Fox News, conducted by NORC at the University of Chicago. Their findings are similar to the exit poll, though one of the demographic traits included on Table 1. Two notable differences are that Associated Press and Fox News found Trump doing better with 18 to 29 voters, losing them by just 4 points instead of the Edison poll's 11, but worse with Hispanics, losing them by 12 points instead of the exit poll's 5 points. That's my editorial edition. In any event, comparing to the Edison exit poll to the approval crosstabs, approval rating averaged by Carlson does give us some sense of how Trump's current approval rating compares to the 2024 voting patterns. Note that while Carlson includes 16 total points from the poll in his average, there are fewer polls in the individual demographic crosstabs. Sometimes national polls only include certain crosstabs if they include any at all, and subgroup crosstabs can be noisy. Also, the University of People that the exit poll is designed to reflect, which is the 2024 presidential electorate, is not the same as the universe of people that these polls are designed to reflect, which is adult registered voters, or likely voters in January and February 2025. So take all of this with more than just a grain of salt. Here is the Table 1 Trump approval rating versus 2024 exit poll. You can see all of his approval ratings. His total was at 16 for number of polls. These are his approval ratings and disapproval ratings for blacks, females, white people, black people, Hispanic people, and the age groups. For the disapproval rating and approval rating, including density, ideology, party ID numbers. Please take note that indicates actual national poller vote margin for Trump. All figures except overall net approval and Trump 2024 margin are rounded. We're getting this information from Adam Carlson from his flat average of 60 national presidential approval polls conducted from January 20th, the day that Trump was sworn in, to February 18th. The polls are from YouGov and CBS News, Pew Research, YouGov, the Economic Quantus Insights, Trending Politics, Quinnipiac University, McClellan and Associates, Gallup Research Company, Echelon Insights, Atlas Intel, SoCal Strategies, On Point Politics, Ipsos, and Reuters, and Margaret University Law School, Signal, Trafalgar Group, Insider Average, and Survey USA. For pollsters that released multiple polls already, only the most recent one is included. I will have a link to Carlson's spreadsheets for more information, including the exit poll margins from Edison's Research 2024 exit poll that were conducted for several media organizations, down below in the video description. Carlson's average finds that Trump's approval rating is at plus 3.6 net, so a little better than 538 or Real Clear Politics averages cited above. This average is also a couple of points better than Trump's 5.1 point margin victory in the popular voting. Generally speaking, Trump is outperforming his 2024 exit poll, showing the most with more Democratic-leaning constituents. You can see in the table, by looking at the Trump approval 2024 margin column on the far right column, a positive number means that Trump's net approval rating in the subgroup is higher than his showing with the subgroup in the exit poll, which is a negative number means that his approval is lower than the exit poll finding among the subgroup. Trump's net approval ratings with whites and Hispanics are very similar to his exit poll margins with those groups. Trump's approval ratings with men is a little higher than his performance in the exit poll, while his approval rating, keep in mind, with women is basically the same as his performance with them. Much was made of Trump's male-focused campaign, and men collectively are already consistently more Republican-leaning than women. So much, ladies and gentlemen, for men being able to play in women's sports. And it's sad that these men support him, but yet they get screwed over by Trump for pretty much supporting him. Continuing with the article. One group that really stands out on this table is black voters, who Trump lost them by 73 points in the exit poll, which was still an improvement, unfortunately, on his past performance. But his approval with that group in his approval rating is a comparatively much better, negative 32% points in this average. We doubt the real difference between Trump's current approval rating and 2024 Trump performance among black voters is as stark as this finding makes it seem, and some pre-election polling overstated how well Trump would do among black voters, which may be a factor here too. With all that being said, this is a margin difference between the exit poll and the aggregated approval polls. Trump's net approval rating percentages is better than his exit poll performance with both 18 to 29-year-olds and those who live in urban areas. One can see the same thing when looking at political ideology and party identification. Trump's approval margins with constituents, Republicans, and those who live in rural areas are not quite as robust as they were in the 2024 exit poll, but he is more than makes up for that by having a net approval with liberals and Democrats that, while it's still low, is close to 20 points better than his exit poll performance with these groups. Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, there is naturally a lot of overlap among these demographics. Many liberals will also be Democrats. Many black voters will also be Democrats. Many conservatives will be Republicans, etc. We're not talking about mutually exclusive groups here. The overall point, though, is that some Democratic-leaning constituents may be giving Trump a level of approval that may be hard for him to sustain, even taking into account Trump's better performance with certain Democratic-leaning groups like young voters and black voters in 2024. With that being said, this merits watching. If Trump is able to keep his approval in positive territory, it may indicate he is holding or even building on some of the newfounded support that he found in 2024. However, if and when Trump and his approval rating goes into net negative territory, it may simply be because of some of this benefit of the doubt from these groups evaporates. Trump certainly would not be the first president to see an approval honeymoon period eventually fade away. One other thing, ladies and gentlemen, is we have noted in the past that Trump's favorability is often lower than his approval. That remains the case. If that, Trump's net favorability is at 47.9% favorability and 48.7% unfavorability, which is negative 0.8% in real politics. Real clear politics, and 46.5% to 48.2%, which is 1.7 negative 1.7 points in 538. Not all approval polls ask about favorability, but this is also not a new finding, so we're confident that this dynamic is just a quirk of certain polling. In the exit poll, 8% of voters said that they had an unfavorable view of both Trump and Harris. And Trump won that group by 52% to 32%. It stands to reason that a small but important group of Americans continue to have an unfavorability view, my editorial edition of Trump, but also both voted for him in November and approve of his job performance, at least for now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for today's video. If you did enjoy this exclusive reporting from Donald Trump's decline, fortunately, please make sure that you like, comment, share, and subscribe. That way you never miss a brand new video. And before we close out today's video, please make sure that you hit the bell icon, as well as follow me down on my socials. I'm on Instagram, Snapchat, Threads. There is where you guys will be able to stay up to date on when I posted a brand new video to the channel. Lastly, please help me reach the channel goal of overall 100 plus subscribers. I'm saying 100 plus subscribers because after we reach the 100 subscriber goal mark, we have more subscribers to get to after we reach the 100 subscriber goal mark. Thank you so very much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching and tuning into today's video, and I will talk to you guys in the next breaking reporting